Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are all doing good. It has been years, absolute years, since I have done an epoxy resin pyramid. Now this is the biggest pyramid mold I think that we can buy as crafters. This is from Amazon. You would have seen it on my channel about 6 years ago and I have not touched it since. These little beauties are also from Amazon. I've had them I think since last Christmas, but they are still available, so I will of course link these as well. This is a family of polar bears. I think there was 5 or 6 in the pack, but I'm only using 3 in the pyramid today. Now the real test for this was really to test the Let's Resin normal for coasters, for general use resin, to see if it could handle a much bigger, deeper pour. You already know I made the crystal tower mold with the Santa and it didn't quite go well. The resin worked a dream, but I didn't do a good job. And I really wanted to test the resin, like I guess push the resin to its limits and just see how well it works in the pyramid mold as well. So first things first, I need to create a solid base. I'm going to build my polar bear family on a solid base, and then it's going to allow me to flip them upside down and place them down in my pyramid. Now my first thought was the base needs to be solid, right? That's all I could think of. It needs a solid base. And I kept going over and over in my head, and I decided to create, I guess, a raft. Okay, I'm creating some kind of raft out of wooden lollipop sticks, and of course I want to disguise that wood. I don't want that wood to be seen, so I'm painting it with white before I completely cover it with batting. So I have a ton of fabric batting or wadding. I don't quite know the difference. I'm not a sewer. I don't sew and I don't make quilts. So if you guys make quilts and you sew a lot of purses and makeup bags and things like that, let me know. Do you call it batting or wadding? Again, the resin we're using throughout this video is going to be the Let's Resin epoxy resin, and all I'm going to do is saturate the batting. I think I'm just going to call it batting for now. I'm going to saturate the batting. I was hoping that the batting would act like a snowy base, right? So the lollipop sticks are the solid, the solid structure. The fabric batting is going to act as more of a softer, delicate, snowy, snowy base. So we're not gonna see the lollipop sticks. Now all I'm doing here is pouring that Let's Resin over the soft squishy batting and making sure that it is actually fully saturated into it before I place down my polar bear family. I do end up doing 2 layers of the batting. What I also did was, once it was kind of like, before I went to do the resin, I was very close to painting it white and immediately backtracked because I thought absolutely not. Now it was at this point I realised I really did not need those lollipop sticks. Over-engineered. I was overthinking everything, trying to work out what's going to give me the perfect solid base for my polar bear family, and my brain went to wood. My brain went to wooden lollipop sticks. Create a base, it's going to be solid. But guys, it would have been solid just using the fabric. It would have been absolutely perfect. So it really was at this moment I was thinking, oh, do you know, I didn't need the sticks. What I really should have done was follow my gut instinct and remove the sticks at this point and just lay down the fabric batting onto the silicone mold. I'm just using the silicone mold as a vessel at this point. Yeah, that's really what I should have done. So basically what I'm saying here is, if you guys are going to go ahead and do this, if you've never done it before and you fancy having a go, it really is a super easy project. Just don't put the lollipop sticks in there. They're almost pointless. They serve no purpose, because in 24 hours, when all of this epoxy resin is fully rock hard and cured, don't need the lollipop sticks, do we? The fabric batting is absolutely enough. So just to reiterate, if I were to do this again, I would use 2, 3 or 4 layers of the fabric batting and then put my polar bears on it, and that would be it. I would just leave out the lollipop sticks. But as soon as I'd done this, I was happy at the time. This is 24 hours later, fully cured, and you can see what I mean. Everything is absolutely solidified, rock hard. Of course it would be, because it's epoxy resin. So why are the sticks there? Serve no purpose. Anyway, look, lesson number 1. It's time to get the excess off. Now, this is way too big for the pyramid. And that's another thing I would have put more thought into. Nothing is going to cut this down now apart from an electric saw or a hand saw, which is exactly what I had to do. I couldn't even really use the scissors at this point. Like it was just way too hard. What I did do was remove the excess soft, dry, fluffy fluff from around the outside. And then I took it out into the garden and I clamped it to my workbench and I cut it down. I needed to cut it down so that it would fit inside the pyramid. This is what I cut it down to. I could have made it even slightly bigger, but I was happy with this. It took a while to cut it down, but I used a giant saw and it did the job. Now at this point, it's time to fill the pyramid up. We're not doing a pyramid in layers. The last time I did one on my channel years ago, I did about 4 or 5 layers, whereas this time around, it's one big pour from top to bottom. And that is why I really want to test out the Let's Resin Resin to see if it will cope with an even deeper, chunkier pour. I am using the huge calibrated cup. This is also from Let's Resin. They do those as well. And I am literally filling the entire cup to the top. Part A, part B, equal parts until I can't fit any more in the cup. I did put it through, of course, on the Let's Resin mixing machine. Now, I think all in all, this cup holds 800 grams, but I did end up mixing around 700, and I figured, you know what, I will make more if I need it. And I believe I did. I needed to make up just a little bit more. But at this point, it is currently being mixed on the mixer and I need to work on this. So while the mixing machine is doing its thing, I need to create a suspension, what's the word? Contraption? Gadget. I need to be able to suspend my polar bear family upside down in my pyramid, right? So you've seen me do this before on the crystal tower. I am simply cutting up some wooden lollipop sticks again. I'm gluing them all together to make myself a little block of wooden sticks. Then I'm going to stick this to the bottom of my polar bear family. And then I'm going to be able to suspend it upside down in my pyramid. It's quite a simple, straightforward thing. It's just making sure that where you suspend it, that the polar bears themselves are not touching the sides of the pyramid and that they're not being crushed by the pyramid. You just have to make sure that they are literally floating mid-air. That's really the only thing to think about here. So once I was happy with where this was going to hang them, suspend them, then I just added the wood to the back. Now at this point, of course, the wooden lollipop stick is teeny tiny compared to the pyramid, so I needed to use a much larger stick, and this is a garden, what do you call it? A label, a wooden label for your garden when you're planting flowers and things. I've had these in my stash since the early days of my channel. I made a huge mirror from them, and I'm sticking that on there. That's going to help us suspend it. Now look, I fast forwarded this because I put 3 cups, yes, 3 cups all went in together into the Let's Resin bubble removing machine, and it did an absolutely fantastic job. I did put it on for 7-8 minutes because there was 3 cups and I needed to make sure that they were all bubble free by the time they came out. But of course I sped the footage up for you because no one needs to sit through that in real time. Now, at this point, I would recommend taking your silicone pyramid out of the plastic and then dusting the inside with either talcum powder or a bit of, I don't know, cheap mica powder or anything you've got laying around. Now, that's just going to help when it comes to demold. It will demold. It just, when you've got something like a powder in between the silicone and the plastic, it flies out of there like a dream. So honestly, it was just a case of filling up the pyramid at this point. The resin, of course, is absolutely crystal clear. It has been through the bubble removing machine. It has been mixed by the resin mixing machine, and I am so happy. I'm just pouring it slowly. I'm pouring it super slowly because what I don't want to do is reintroduce any bubbles. I'm also pouring a small amount of resin onto each of the faces of the polar bears, and then I actually give the polar bears a generous spray of isopropyl alcohol. Now this is just going to help them go into the resin without creating air bubbles behind them, right? They're not going to trap air bubbles in the resin. I also sprayed the pyramid with the isopropyl alcohol before pouring the resin in. Now quite often, I mean, you've got those super sharp corner, like the tip of the pyramid is a super detailed point, and just putting some alcohol in there really helps the resin get in there and not trap air instead. So that was really the thought processes behind it. So again, just pouring resin in until I feel like there's enough in there. Now, I did spray quite a bit of alcohol in this project. I don't think I needed to. I think if you put too much alcohol in, you can create quite a cloudy resin. So I think it would have been even more superb had I not used as much alcohol as I did. But hey, you know, it's been years. It's been years. This isn't the kind of project you can practice over and over and over and over until you kind of get it right in order to film it, you know. Don't have the time or the resources, but yeah, here I am just making sure that I've got enough resin and I've got it exactly where I want it to be. You can see that large stick now is really what is keeping it in place. What I wanted was, I needed the resin up to the white layer, but I didn't want it to cover anywhere near the wood because I don't want to see this wood. This wood cannot be seen in the final product, right? So I didn't want to bring the resin up to the wood. I just wanted to bring the resin up to the batting, the wadding layer, so that, you know, 24 hours later, I can fill it with more wadding and we'll completely cover the wooden lollipop sticks. Now, I am going to use some lights in here because I just think it would be absolutely magical. Of course, we're using the Let's Resin Resin again. It's going back through the mixing machine again. Guys, it felt like this was such an easy, like, 2-3 step program of a project, but it just felt like it took days. Absolutely days. So at this point, everything is cured. We are ready to fill this pyramid up, but not to the very top because, again, we need to put a white layer base on it. Right now, my priority is covering up the wooden lollipop sticks. Now, hindsight is a fantastic thing. What I really could have done was to paint the lollipop sticks white because I cut it down, right? Again, so many lessons learned, always. Once I cut down the lollipop sticks, why didn't I go over and paint them in white? Because that would have really taken out some of the worry. You know, the worry was we'd see the lollipop sticks. So I really was concerned about it. But then I could have easily taken away that worry by painting them white, but my brain sometimes doesn't connect the dots, so here I am. So I've cut out the batting, the wadding. Now, the reason I've cut the batting into a square, like you saw, with the square missing from the middle, is because the wood that I've placed on the bottom protrudes slightly over the surface of the pyramid, right? So we're going to have some sanding at the end. So that's why I didn't want to put any batting over that centerpiece, because it's pointless. It's just already protruding. So yeah, that was the theory behind it. That was my thought process. Now I've absolutely saturated the rest of this in resin just to make sure that it gets weighted down. It's heavy. It's gonna really sink into the areas that I need it to sink into. And this was just a lot of poking, a lot of prodding. And I really felt at this point that because I used the wooden lollipop sticks, I just felt like I'd made a lot of unnecessary work for myself. I genuinely just felt like this could have been just so much easier if I didn't use the lollipop sticks, because at this point I could have just laid the batting down, right? If the lollipop sticks weren't there, I could have just laid the batting down. Now with the lights, you could wait until this is fully cured and UV glue, like UV resin, stick your lights down individually and put them exactly where you wanted them to. But I decided again to make my life unnecessarily hard and tricky, and I chose the difficult route, and that was to get the lights into the resin whilst wet. I don't recommend. I mean, they came out a dream and it worked a dream, but it was just so fiddly. And I'm like, why am I doing this? Why don't I just wait another day? Because at this point, it, like I said, it felt like days had gone past since I started the project. But yeah, what I did was I poked each and every light down into the wadding, and I tried to get the wadding to come up and over each light. And I just held my fingers crossed, like crossed my fingers. Now, at this point, I should be wearing gloves, guys. I know, but I'm not. I laid down some spare silicone rubber mat. Now, I've got some old silicone rubber mats that I cut up to use when I need them. And I laid it down over the pyramid, which weighted down the batting and worked a dream. Because, of course, it's fuzzy, gorgeous, soft, squishy, fuzzy material. It's sticking up and protruding out of the bottom. I don't want it to. I want it to be as flat as possible. So laying down that silicone mat, what a dream. What an absolute dream. I'm just testing here that it is still coming out of the housing. And it is. And yeah, now it's just time to finish off the base. Now for the base, again, using the Let's Resin epoxy resin with some white liquid pigment paste and some of the super sparkle white, although that is pointless, you don't see it. Again, I'm just doing white at the base because we haven't got full opaque a blocking out of colour with the batting, right? It's almost see-through in areas, so I just want to make sure that the bottom is white. That's what I've done here. The final layer, we are done, we are dusted. It is time to wait 24 hours. Again, you can see the wooden lollipop sticks in the center. You can see just how much they protrude through the surface. Not an issue though, because we do have a sanding machine now. We're going to leave this. 24 hours later, we come back. I'm always testing the lights, guys. I am forever testing these lights. This is 24 hours later. And it is time to sand the bottom. So I'm just making sure that there is a liberal spray of water on there. I'm using the Let's Resin sanding machine and I am sanding this baby down, making sure that those chunks of wood are flat and level with the rest of the pyramid. Otherwise, we will have a rocker of a pyramid for the rest of forever. It would just never sit flat. So yeah, just giving this, it didn't take long because there really wasn't that much. But just giving this a good once over, twice over, 3 times over, making sure you're using lots of water on the surface of your resin. You don't want resin dust flying anywhere. Giving it a little white and it's time to demold. And guys, oh my goodness, demolding it was easy. Now I had flown over the edges with the resin which had gone down into the plastic mould housing. But even that is a poly plastic, so it comes off of that too, so don't worry. Oh, first impressions, heartbreak. Second impressions, wow. Heartbreak, because I think we can all see the lollipop sticks. I was devastated, absolutely devastated. I was like, why? There's a song in there somewhere. Yeah, my first immediate thoughts were, no. My second thoughts were, but wow. Absolutely wow. The Let's Resin is the normal resin, guys, for coasters, jewellery, like the normal standard pour resin. It's not the deep pour, but it has worked like a dream. The resin itself, crystal clear. There are some bubbles. Now, the bubbles are really associated with the fuzzy with the fuzzy material that I've put down after. And the fuzzy, yeah, it's all just fuzzy and it's holding on to air bubbles. But those air bubbles are not in the main body of the pyramid, which, oh my gosh, I'm just so in love. I'm just over the moon that the Let's Resin, not deep pour, handled such a deep pour, like without issue. But look at this. Look at this lollipop stick. I mean, guys, I haven't even got anything. I can't even say. What can I say? They're on a raft. Are they on a raft? Are they on a magic carpet? I don't know. I don't know. The pyramid itself, stunning. The edges, oh my gosh, the edges are crisp. That top of the pyramid, the point of the pyramid, crisp and clear and beautiful. You can see me there. I used my deburring tool right at the end to clean up the edges. I love this. So many mistakes were made, but I still love it. Now, the other thing I did, which I'd never do again, the lights, they're coming out of the front. I left it so that the wire was coming out of the front. Now, that was not intentional. Of course, I just stuck the lights down. I didn't pay no mind. I didn't think, where are the polar bears in conjunction with the lights, right? I didn't realize I'd stuck the lights at the front. So now when you've got this on display on your shelf, the lights are hanging off the front. Like, what? And secondly, those lollipop sticks. Those lollipop sticks are going to haunt me forever. Because why did I put them in? And then when I cut them down, why didn't I paint them white again? Anyway, look, I'm obsessed. Yes, this is on my stairs. The best place for this, for me, would be up high on a shelf. And I mean not high, but like anything over 5'5", where you can see the beauty of the pyramid. You can see the crystal clear resin. You can see the beautiful polar bear family. You can see the lights, all of it. But you can't see the wooden lollipop sticks. They're out of sight. Out of sight, out of mind. I wouldn't mind. But on all three sides, the lollipop sticks are fine. Absolutely fine. You can't see them. Only on the front, where it matters. And guys, honestly, the last thing to mention is that the lights have started to flicker. They're not working. I can turn them on and they work. And then all of a sudden they start to flicker. They go off. They come back on. And this has always been my worry with putting lights in resin. I don't do it that often. When I have done it in the past, it's worked. But this time around, they are not happy. They're not happy. But you know what? I don't care. I'm happy. I absolutely love the results. The resin itself is crystal clear. It's just a dream. I hope you feel inspired and take everything that I've done wrong in this video. Take all of those things and do it better than me. You know, don't use the lollipop sticks. Don't use as much alcohol spray. It's a bit cloudy. I think it's cloudier than it could be because I know how much spray I've used. Don't use the lollipop sticks. Don't do that. It's going to be so much better without them. And also, either if you are using lights, make sure that the tail of the lights is coming out of the back of your piece. Don't leave it hanging out the front. Other than that, oh my gosh, I'm stunned. Absolutely in love with my polar bear family. Thank you all so much for watching. This was a long one and I hope you feel some inspiration somewhere along the line. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.